freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 321 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by AZ Firearms Auctions, your nationwide hometown gun auction, where you set the price on guns, ammo, and accessories. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. Our theme today is preserving history for the next generation, and our guest today is Jeff Gottesfeld. Jeff writes for Page, Stage, and Screen. He has won awards from the American Library Association, the Association of Jewish Libraries, the Writers Guild of America, the National Council for Social Studies, and the American Alliance for Theater and Education. His current focus is picture book text for children, and he's just published his latest title, 21 Steps, Guarding the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you for having me here. It's a great opportunity to talk to your audience.
This is so awesome and so exciting. And I wish that I had planned ahead so that I had a copy of your book in my hands, because we are definitely going to get a copy. We have two grandchildren, two granddaughters, and they've both been to Washington, D.C. They've been to where those steps are taken every day, and I want them to learn more about it. So talk to us. Oh, and by the way, it just so happens that as we're sitting in the studio on Monday, June 14th, 2021, today is Flag Day. So
it is. We just put our flag up in front of the house.
How appropriate is that? So, it's interesting how we each grow and change through our lives, right? And our experiences that happen during our lifetime, the historical events. When you were younger, your views were somewhat different than they are today. You described yourself off air as a former Vietnam War protester, not in favor of the Vietnam War, and maybe a lot of that came along with that. So how did you journey from that place to writing such a deeply patriotic book such as this?
Well, here's what's good. What's good is I was engaged with my country, and
Absolutely.
with our issues and problems and our hopes and dreams from a very young age. I was thinking last night, I think my 9th grade class voted me in the class will a life membership in the Communist Party, which someone sometime is going to dig out.
Sure.
So,
Surprised they haven't already.
So it is true. I mean, I was a Vietnam War protester, and my sense on the American military. I grew up in Teaneck, New Jersey, which is a liberal bastion near New York City.
Mm-hmm.
We were the first school system in the country to integrate our schools voluntarily. I was part of that. It was amazing. It was a great thing. But I grew up in Teaneck. It was the Vietnam War, and my attitude about the American military and that war and most American institutions was skeptical at best. But
I don't think that's a bad thing. We taught our daughter question authority. I just hate it when it's me that she's questioning.
Sure, skeptical at best, and and then I got older and I learned more history,
Mm-hmm.
and there were some seminal events that sort of changed my thinking. There was the 1973 Middle East War when Israel was attacked, and the United States military under President Nixon, you can say what you want about Nixon, but he ordered a resupply, saved that country. 10 years later, we had sent our Marines to Beirut on a peacekeeping mission to try and stabilize what used to be an amazing Middle Eastern capital, and terrorists blew up our Marine barracks and blew up the barracks of the French, and Gulf War I. And I came to see that our institutions, Churchill said, like, democracy is the worst form of government except for everything else. And that our military, I mean, as Dennis Prager often says, it's one of the greatest forces for good on the face of the planet historically. Now, look, I'm not naive about this. We're a big country. We're a big military. We make mistakes.
Sure.
However, and the Vietnam War may have been a mistake. I mean, historians are arguing about it till today. That you oppose a war or oppose a policy does not mean you need to oppose the institution or oppose the country. I think we've got a great thing going in America, which is why fundamentally I was in a frame of mind where I could write this book.
Absolutely. I love that. And, it's interesting how things that seem maybe diametrically opposed or, that fight with each other really are, I think, and my background is in psychology. So as I'm unpacking this, you'll probably pick up on some of that. I think those are the things that ultimately bring us to the biggest areas of change in our lives. And thank goodness for that tension, because I think that's usually where you get the best product, whether it's politically speaking, we own a family business, multiple family businesses. And, Dan and I, it's amazing. At married couples, sometimes we disagree.
What?
Probably nobody out there has ever even experienced that, but sometimes we disagree. And then, that tension brings us to a new place and a better place, I think.
I think you're right. And I think we live in an age where disagreement is underscored and heightened, and then gets retweeted and gets likes and pushes up the dopamine. But for me, I've traveled extensively in the United States. I've been to 46 out of 50 states. My education was in Maine and Arizona. I lived in Nashville for 10 years. I lived in Salt Lake City. We're a big nation, and we manage to balance things. When we're doing well, we balance them quite nicely, and I visited Europe and traveled all through Europe and lived in France for a while. And there are people out there who don't like democracy. They just don't like the idea of it, and it's something precious to protect.
Yeah, we have people in the United States that don't like democracy.
Right.
No kidding.
That's the scary. That's the scary part.
Well,
Yes.
and
No kidding.
to even understand that we are a republic, right? We are supposed to be a representative nation and republic. And that even gets lost because democracy, is one part of it. But it's really, who was it that said, we have a republic if you can keep it? Ben Franklin, I think, said that as they were talking about our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. So, so this book right there behind you, 21 Steps, I want to hear more about it. I want to hear all about it. But one of the things that we kind of talked about off air is that it runs very counter to a lot of what else is going on in children's literature today. And I just wanted you to kind of, unpack that a little bit. Let us know a little more about what that means.
I'd call it a counterpoint. So the book is about the origin of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier following World War I, and about how the tomb guards came to guard it starting on July 2nd, 1937. And it is told from the perspective of the first unknown, who was interred on the 11th day of the 11th month at the 11th hour in 1921. And America was clamoring for a Tomb of the Unknowns because we lost so many people in World War I who never came home or died nameless and faceless. And the idea that that we don't know who the unknown is, that the unknown could be Christian, Jewish, Muslim, atheist. The unknown could be liberal, conservative, moderate. The unknown could be black or white. And we have unknown soldiers buried there now from World War II and Korea as well. The fact that we don't know who the unknown is means the unknown belongs to all of us equally.
Wow.
And the tomb guards, who are men and women of every race, religion, and creed. We've had tomb guards from Native nations. We've had tomb guards who are Christian, Jewish, male, female, and on the mat, they do everything they can to self-efface. They would like to be, the mat is no place for creativity. They would like to be as similar to one another in their deportment and the way they carry out their duties and in their quest for perfection as any other tomb guard. So we live in an age of identity, and part of it is really good what's going on in children's literature. You know, the last 10 years, 15 years has seen books by writers who tended to be underrepresented about subjects that were underrepresented. But this book's a counterpoint to that. You know, there are times when self-effacement and focus on other values are the only way you can go through. Wartime is not a time for individual creativity and identity. It's a time where a Black soldier from Compton, California's life will depend on a kid from Teaneck, New Jersey, and a kid from Teaneck, New Jersey's life is going to depend on someone from the Choctaw Nation, and someone from the Choctaw Nation is going to depend on some Boston kid who swings for the fences every time he comes to the plate. And that's, you know, that's our moment. And that's why the tomb is so sacred, and why everyone who stands in front of it, I mean, you've been there. You just in awe when you look at it, because you know in front of you, there's our country at its best. That's what we're capable of.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. I mean, you've said so much, and the underscoring notion of it, I feel, is about unification, about being unified. And we are supposed to be the United States. And so in a microcosm right there at that tomb, I think, and I never had thought of it that way before. I love the way that you brought that out, that, you know, at a time where, you know, it seems like division is celebrated. I mean, it's wonderful to be unique, a unique individual, have a unique life, all those things, but not to the diminishment or the detriment of someone else. And it feels like that's kind of what's bubbling out there right now, that in order for me to be good, you know, somebody else has to be bad. And here at the tomb of the unknown soldier, you know, you're saying all of those things go away, and it's just really about honoring another human being.
And the tomb guards, you know, and it's really, really hard to become a tomb guard. It's it's the hardest post for an enlisted person to achieve. The only harder thing to become in the Army is an astronaut. There haven't been, I don't think there have been 700 of them since they started to stand guard in 1937. The tomb guards embody a set of values in their work, which are also important values to hold. You know, these things can be side by side. You can be thinking about identity and you can think about self-effacement at the same time. It's not bad. And, you know, I have a lot of admiration for young people today. They are more kinder and more compassionate and more tolerant than I was ever taught to be. Yeah. And that's great, because kindness, you know, you're going to build a bigger community, and compassion, you're going to help somebody who's hurting. And if you're not tolerant in the United States, we're not going to have a country, because we're a big, wide nation. However, those aren't the only values. And values like respect and honor and diligence and self-effacement again, and reverence and devotion. These are also crucial values if you're going to have a military and if you're going to have a country. We could have used a few more of those values during the last year, I think, you know?
So has there been 700 people that's guarded the tomb? Is that about right?
Yeah, I think that's the number. I think they're in the high 600 now. And I've spoken to, obviously, there's no way I could write this, but I wasn't a tomb guard. I wasn't the I didn't serve in the military. Neither did my parents, neither did my grandparents. So I had to talk to many of them to make this book possible. And they're remarkable. They're just normal people. You know, I talk in the book before their service, they were students, they were supermarket baggers, they were auto mechanics, and, you know, from every walk of life, every race, religion, and creed. And then on the mat, they're Americans.
Right.
That's it.
And anybody that goes to that and sees that event, they are so devoted and disciplined. Disciplined is the key. Is just like you can't just say I'm going to do that and do it. If you see it, you can't even understand what we mean unless you've been there.
You do need to see it. Kids could certainly watch video of it. And here's the thing: I had a conversation with a tomb guard named Colin Anthony, who told me, he was like, you know, Jeff, here's the question I get all the time. It's like, isn't it just too much? All the 21s and holding your weapon at 90 degrees and the heel clicks and spacing the metals to 1/64th of an inch and the quest for perfection. It's like, isn't it too much? And he told me, I think about the unknown who gave everything, including his name and his face, and that's all three unknowns. The least that I can give is my very, very best for 2 years.
Wow.
And every tomb guard has that attitude, otherwise you don't do it.
Yeah. No, that is so beautiful. And I am not going to get through this without crying. I can just tell you right now.
I had no idea.
Happen.
When I went, I had no idea.
I'm so touched.
I had no idea when I went. It was just, you cannot describe it. I don't even think you can see it on TV and understand it unless you're there. You have to.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, there's no such thing as a quick visit to the tomb of the unknown soldier. You know, you get there and you're standing, and it almost doesn't even matter what kind of day it is. If it's pounding rain, you're just stunned that the guards are carrying out their duty the same way. And if you're out there with 5,000 people and you don't hear a pin drop, right? Because everyone is just transfixed by what they're seeing. It's almost a religious, spiritual thing, right? I mean, in its own way. Yeah.
I would say that. And when we go, it's always in the middle of summer. So it is like so hot, and all of that, marble or whatever it's made of, it is just radiating the heat of the sun. And I could stand there and fan myself, and I'm looking at these guards who just seem impervious to the elements and the level of focus. It's inspiring is what it is, because
that's totally my phrase on it. It is, you are uplifted, but you would think it would be depressing to go there, and think about all the loss, but it is a little bit, it's pretty bittersweet, but it's also inspiring. And now think about this, during the COVID year, there were no visitors to Arlington. There was no one on the plaza. And yet the tomb guards carried out their work as if there were 10,000 people there constantly. That's the degree of devotion.
I love it. And to that point, it's not a performance. Like you said, it's not about, look at me, how amazing I am that I can withstand this heat or whatever. It's just this duty and honor. and to witness it, especially to be there if the weather happens to be inclement in some way, it takes away all the excuses. Like mentally, I can go back there and go, maybe but it's so hard that's going on in my brain today with whatever my tasks are. I can pull from the strength and the focus and the precision. That's the thing that just gets me. It's like watching clockwork, the gears of a clock as
Oh,
they.
they're standard, as it says in the Sentinel's Creed, which was a poem left at the doorstep of the Tomb Guard quarters in 1971. By the way, no one knows who wrote it. It was signed only Simon. So the writer is also anonymous. The famous line,
Perfect.
the famous line 6, our standard will remain perfection. And the idea of the perfection is, yes, people will focus on them and marvel at the perfection, but then they will look through the tomb guard, hopefully, to the tomb, and ponder, what the cost of our freedom is. The freedom
Yes.
to be individuals
Yes.
is
Wow.
born in the blood of men and women who gave everything, including their names and their faces. I mean, it's paradoxical, but it's also magnificent.
I can't wait to see your book, because it's like
Nah.
anything that we can teach our kids to understand that.
Mhm.
Because right
Okay.
now, a lot of them don't. They're
Can
not
I-
teaching. Go ahead.
Can I read a paragraph from it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please,
Okay,
yes.
fantastic. Let's see if I can do this. It's so funny. Most of the time when I read my own stuff, I want to take a red pen and mark it all up. I just hate it afterwards. This book so far, this is going pretty good. So I'm reading from this page, okay?
Mhm.
Which is, and Matt Tavares's artwork is unbelievable.
Yes.
So this is the first unknown in state in the Capitol, November 10, 1921. And again, remember this, I'm right, it's told in first person.
Okay.
In 1921, one unknown returned to stand for all. I was transported by the Navy to Washington and lay in state in the Capitol, where an army of mourners filed past my casket. Many were families whose sons died, nameless and faceless. As they knelt, prayed, and anointed my flag with tears, I felt their stories. The stories of a Boston kid who swung for the fences, a Texas boy who broke horses, a Choctaw Nation farmhand, a Nevada miner. In that moment, I became theirs.
Very good.
Wow. Oh my gosh,
Very
goosebumps.
good.
Because we don't know, he could have been any of their sons, right?
Any of them, it is it's the epitome of selfless service, and hopefully kids will read this and
Mhm.
understand the selfless service of our soldiers
Mhm.
and the selfless service of the tomb guards, and be inspired maybe to just be a little bit better in
Mhm.
some aspect of their life. On a
Mhm.
national holiday, fine, watch baseball, but take 21 seconds
Yeah.
to think about the cost that individuals have endured, families have endured, military units have endured, communities have endured, and a nation has endured. And I'll tell you what, when you start thinking about those costs and realize that they belong to all of us,
Mhm.
suddenly people with whom you disagree, the disagreement's not so profound. If you can unite on the reality of the loss and the
Mhm.
reality of the cost, okay, you disagree, we'll do
Mhm.
better. We'll figure something out here.
The problem is a
That's
lot of people,
beautiful.
there's people out there that don't care about the loss. They don't look into the loss. And that's what's hard, is because they don't realize what was given to us.
You know, all I can say, Dan, is that the response of young people to this book, and I've done a lot of Zoom talks on it all over the country, they're stunned. You know, I look at the classrooms of third graders and fourth graders, and then the questions come. How do you become a tomb guard? How long are they out there on the mat for in the summer? What happens if somebody faints? Who was the first woman? And the questions just, they keep coming at me and coming at me. They don't remember a lot of times because we're not doing a good enough job teaching.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm fond of saying you can't blame somebody for something they were never taught. So
That's true.
You know, so let's teach, you know,
Right.
let's teach. And I hope a book like 21 Steps becomes a teaching tool as well as an emotional connection for young people to the service. And they know it. They know it. They know about the wars, even a little bit.
Yes.
But this, doing it in first person
Yes.
from the unknown,
Humanizes
that
it.
makes it personal.
Personalizes it.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, you touched on the fact that, you know, as you've done these Zoom calls with younger kids in their classrooms and whatnot, that the reaction has been wonderful. How about adults across the political spectrum, right? I mean, this sounds like something that, you know, the real diehard flag waving, you know, patriotic, maybe conservatives would gobble up. But is it just that audience, or
Not
what has been the
only,
reaction?
no, not only. I mean, I've done a program at Politics and Prose bookstore in Washington, D.C. There was a feature story by Mike Kelly on the North Jersey Record, a front page story about it. It resonates. Look, I'm fond of saying this. We're a big country, 330 million people. It gets really flaky out at the edges. You know, and that's just, no, it does, but you know, just look at the numbers. You know, you've got 330,000 people there. They're just like, you can't even talk, you know. But for most of us, the vast majority of us, left, right, center, they respond to this.
I love it.
Because they know it's true.
I love it. It's just the, you know, truth does tend to do that, you know, and it resonates, and you know, you can't deny what's been going on at this tomb for how many years? Since 1937.
Well,
Right?
the Tomb Guard since 37, and we're in the centennial year. Okay, so this coming November is the 100th anniversary of the tomb itself. And you have to realize also, because people are people, the tomb was established in 1921, and let me see if I can read this quickly. Okay, so this is spread from the book.
Yes.
I mean, look at what's going on here. And it says, people, though, forget easily. My tomb stands on a hill crest. It did not take long for visitors to come for the view and not the meaning. Some brought picnics, feasting gaily above my bones. So, you know, we constantly need to be reminded. You know, volunteers stepped in and started guarding the tomb. And then in 1937, the official guard from the 3rd Regiment, the Old Guard, began to be posted there. But it's so easy to forget. You have to hold on to memory.
Yeah.
You know, it's very easy to get washed away.
It's true. And when I was, one of the times that we went and visited, there was some young teenagers. They just didn't know. They didn't realize what was going on. They were being a little bit boisterous, loud, not realizing how really inappropriate and rude it was. And the guards, they even know what to do about that. They make a quick vocal correction. And I mean, it gets everyone's attention. And I mean, it's just exactly what needs to happen. And everybody just moves on. Right. And I'm glad for that, because again, we could, if the guards weren't allowed to do that or instructed to do that, I think, again, it could just kind of be like, oh, it's just this place that we go, and not really keep that reverent spiritual
At
feel.
the risk of getting too philosophical, the great the great Austrian psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, who
Mhm.
was in the camps,
Mhm.
he's Jewish, he was in the camp, he survived the camps, and came out and wrote one of the great books of all time called Man's Search for Meaning. And in the book, he said, the United States, he loved America, but he said, the United States, you've got a Statue of Liberty. What you guys need is a Statue of Responsibility. Put that Statue of Responsibility someplace on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Because without responsibility, liberty just devolves into everybody doing what they want.
Right.
Wow.
We have that Statue of Responsibility. It's at Arlington.
I love
It's
it.
the tomb of the unknown soldier.
Oh my God.
And yeah, anyone who pays any attention to it at all will be a better person, will be a better American, and will help us build a more United States.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I hate to say, because the first time that I went to the tomb, before I knew what it was all about, I probably, well, I wouldn't sit on a tomb, but I would have probably been the picnic people, just looking at the view and things. And
just in your mindset.
in the mindset. But then when you go there and you realize that what's there and
Why
it's there makes a difference. I mean, because I've always respected military people that have served in our country and saved us from everything, but it didn't click to me at first.
Yeah.
So what I also want to say, Jeff, your book, I haven't read it yet, of course, but what you've read to me, it's designed for children.
It is.
But you know what? It's going to touch a lot of adults' hearts.
I've spoken to adult groups. I've spoken to senior groups. I'm going to be speaking to some military groups about it. It resonates because I think it just reframes also. It frames it for young people. And I wouldn't give this to a kindergartner. I would say third grade and up.
Yeah.
But for an adult, who understands the context and has borne the losses of friends and community members who made the ultimate sacrifice, it resonates strongly with those folks. Very strong.
Agree. And I think those are sometimes the best kids' books are the ones that, kind of hit us adults in a place where we're like, I either knew this and forgot it, or where the heck have I been that I didn't ever know this, and cause us to, really want to dig in more and teach our kids more and teach ourselves more. So I applaud that. Just as we start winding down a little bit.
We're not going to wind down. We're going to talk about other stuff.
I know, Dan does not want to go.
Stay with me.
Talk to us about some of your other works. Like, so you've got this children's.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a writer. I'm looking for a good story. I got the idea for this book. I mean, there was a big philosophical build to it, but I was visiting the Los Angeles National Cemetery on Memorial Day of 2016, and which I do on Memorial Day, and was walking amongst the headstones and saw a couple that said unknown, and I'm like, oh my gosh, right here in the Los Angeles National Cemetery, and then I started digging in, and it got me thinking about the tomb and the tomb guards. I look for good stories. I have a book coming in September, a holiday season book called The Christmas Mitzvah, which is about it is fun. It's inspired by a true story about a Jewish man in Milwaukee who loved Christmas and was incensed that his Christian neighbors had to work on Christmas Eve. So he started volunteering to do their jobs, and he did it for 30 some odd years, and it became like a thing. My first picture book is called The Tree in the Courtyard. It's Anne Frank's story, but from the point of view of the horse chestnut tree in the courtyard behind the secret annex, which came down in a storm. And now seedlings from that tree have been planted all over the world. There's one, for example, at the 9/11 Memorial in New York. There's one at Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. Picture books are what I do now. because they're a challenge for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to tell a complete story like this in 850 words or so. But before that, I did a little bit of everything. I wrote for The Young and the Restless. I wrote for Smallville. I've written teen chick lit. I mean, I've done, if it can be written, if it's not about architecture or carp fishing, I've pretty much written it.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, I love how you see the world. Like, you're talking about Anne Frank, and you decide the tree should tell the story. You're talking about the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and you decide that the first soldier should tell us the story. That's amazing.
Well, that
And
tree
then-
was there every
It's
day.
not gut instinct. It can
Yeah.
take me a while to get to those things.
That's awesome.
But this for 21 steps, I mean, I sort of floundered around in the story for about a year until I figured out, let's tell it from the point of view of the first unknown. So it's not all easy, but always worth it.
It's amazing, and it's really our honor to have a moment to chat with you about all of this. And our granddaughters are 2 and almost 7, so they are a little bit on the young side, as you say, for this particular book. But the pictures are still especially for the almost 7-year-old. She's been there a few times.
Oh,
So
they're
it'll harken
remarkable.
back to her.
I should show off a little bit of Matt's artwork. So this is inside the tomb guard quarters, and you see one of the guards shining a shoe. They'll shine their shoes for anywhere between 4 and 6 hours a day.
Wow.
This is the crowded plaza.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then that's a tomb guard alone at night.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
That's amazing.
yeah.
And, so for her, she'll be able to, beautiful. She'll be able to look at those pictures and go, oh yeah, Grandma, we were there. I remember. And then when we go back again, then the 2-year-old might have that level of familiarity that she's seen these pictures before, and it'll just build upon itself. But thank you. Thank you again
Thank you so much. My dream in my perfect world is that just as the night before Christmas is read all over America on Christmas Eve, maybe 21 steps will be read the night before Memorial Day or Veterans Day. Go have fun on those days. Absolutely. That's what our soldiers fought for. Enjoy our lives, but take a little bit of time.
I love it. I really love it. Tell folks how they can continue to follow you, get all of your other books, all your new books that you haven't yet even put pen to paper on.
I'm easy to find. There are only 3 Jeff Gottesfelds in America, and I'm the writer. I actually know the other 2, and I've had a beer with one of them.
Oh wow!
But you can. My website is jeffgottesfeldwriter.com. I'm on Instagram. You can find my books at IndieBound, at Amazon, at Barnes and Noble, at your local bookstore. This book is everywhere, and it's thrilling to see how it's being embraced.
I love it.
Yes.
Well, thank you again so much. We so appreciate you, Jeff. And we're going to check back in with you and see some of your new books, talk to you about some of your new books in the future.
I'd love that. Thank you again for having me, and have a beautiful Flag Day today and on into the future.
Thanks, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
too,
much.
Jeff.
So long,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye-bye.
So long.
Wow, I think about that book, and if he can touch just a few kids, and those kids touch a few other kids, because you look on YouTube and they say, what is Memorial Day to people? And people say it's a day to party, it's a day to do this, a day to do that, and they don't even know what it means.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully this book will help touch some kids to be able to tell other kids what it means.
I agree. And imagine if you have a family member who, their remains never, were identified. What an impact this can have on you, just to say, okay, our family member really is remembered and really is honored.
Right.
And this is, evidence of that. I just think it's beautiful,
Yeah.
and I'm so grateful and appreciative for Jeff to have written it and then had it so beautifully illustrated and then shared it with us. It's really quite a work, and it's so interesting how you can be so profound in a kid's book,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Kids book.
It's amazing to
Yeah.
me. All right. Well, we want to thank Jeff for being an awesome guest
And all
and
our listeners too.
all of our amazing listeners who, of course, are not just here in Arizona where we're sitting, not just across our united, hopefully still united states.
Except the
Um,
crusty borders,
the crusty, yeah. What do you,
edges, crusty
yeah.
edges.
I love how he said that. Um, but across the world.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to stop in with us, and whether you're watching us on video format, which this is one you really want to have watched, right? Not just listened to, because we get to have a sneak peek into some of those beautiful illustrations in Jeff's book. But you can watch us on YouTube till they kick us off, because YouTube is not super friendly to a lot of the things we have talked about on this show. This one should be fine, right? I
I don't
hope.
know. There's accountability and discipline. Those are heavy words to some YouTube.
Responsibility,
Yes.
yeah. You can find us on Gunstreamer. That's like a YouTube style site.
Mhm.
They are very friendly to just free speech, so we love them. And then also on the smartphone app, it's called UpsLens. You can find our videos on there. And if you really would prefer to just listen, maybe because you're out taking a walk or you're taking a long drive or something, and the audio only format is the better way to go, you can find all of our episodes at gunfreedomradio.com. You click the on demand tab and binge listen to your heart's content, as my husband rolls his eyes at me.
Darling.
Darling. And if you want to learn more about each of our guests that we've ever had on, these are amazing subject matter experts. You can click the guest tab. You will find photos and bios and links to all of the other things that these experts have done in their careers. And we actually even try to keep up with it. So moving forward, we try to keep those updated with new stuff that our guests have been doing. So it's an incredible resource, and we don't hate it when you spend time there. So you ready to wrap up?
I'm ready to wrap up.
All right, so until next time, what are we going to do?
We're going to pray for this nation.
Yep.
Pray for our leaders,
Yep.
all of them.
How about the ones you don't like? Oh, that's a lot of silence right there.
I'm not allowed to.
That was a long pause.
No, everyone. We're going to pray for everyone.
Maybe especially the ones you don't particularly like.
And let's pray for the families of the unknown soldiers.
Absolutely.
Just pray for them today.
Absolutely. And for the dedication of the tomb guards. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Really amazing examples to our young people.
And we'll pray for our young people that they can understand the sacrifices that was made by
Mhm.
the people that helped you to become free.
Absolutely. And stay free. So anyway, thank you all so much. And until next time, be good to each other. Have a great week. And
God bless.
God bless. Bye-bye.